My name's Jim Lee. Thanks for attending this session. This is on the Aerospace Improvement Maturity Model. It's a free tool that is not just for companies that are certified, it's for companies that are wanting to become certified. And I'll get into a little bit of that as well. Not just AS9100, but ISO 9001, or it can also apply to AS9120 or 9110 companies because there's a lot of overlap with AS9100. And this tool is really flexible. So keep in mind when these standards are written, ISO 9001, the AS standards, they're a minimum baseline quality management system. And you can do more. And that's where this model comes into play and why it's been developed. So let me talk about the purpose of the AIMM tool. And what we have are that continual improvement is a clause in the standard, and it's part of every quality management system. They want to see that we're setting objectives and targets and that we make improvements in our processes, for our company, for our quality management system. When I talked about the baseline quality management system and how some companies can get certified and you think, oh my gosh, how is that company certified? We're certified, or we're not certified, and that company is, and I know that they're not doing well and their performance stinks, and why on earth, how is that possible? Well, part of the quality management systems are, you're looking at that baseline threshold, and there's so much more that can be done and could be done for your quality management system in every area. And so this tool is to help with that. And we see in the industry companies that just want to hang their certificate on the wall, and we see other companies that want to use the tool, use the certification to be a better organization. They see the quality management system helping to reduce headaches, have fewer firefights, improve our processes, those kinds of things. So with that understanding of different varying levels of maturity and complexity, you get one company that just wants to hang their certificate on the wall and has this bare bones quality management system, and you have another company that is doing a lot above and beyond the standard, and they're both certified, but when you look at the performance and the reputation, and it's not the same field. And so this AIMM tool is a way for those companies that wanting to make improvements have a tool to help identify areas to make those improvements. So the purpose is to move companies beyond compliance to the baseline ISO or AS standard and have continual improvement throughout their systems. So you'll see in this tool, this online tool, that it helps you determine where there might be opportunities and where you might want to set targets, or where you might want to even set action items and track the action items. Have any of you seen the AIMM social media releases, email blasts, LinkedIn stuff, and anybody attend the free webinars on this yet? Yeah, a couple, yeah, 3, yeah. I didn't find the webinars helpful. This is going to get deeper into the tool and show you the meat into it. But you can see here some of the other objectives for the AIMM model, and ultimately trying to improve the quality and make improvements through the supply chain in the aerospace community. So the users, this is a very flexible tool. You grade yourself, you assess yourself, and you need to be honest. When you look in the mirror, you want to be honest. I talked about certified companies. What I'm going to be showing you are simpleQuE's example of, we're an ISO 9001 certified company, have been for 17 years, and how we use this tool, how we tailored out some of the aerospace requirements that didn't apply to us. We're a service company. There were manufacturing questions that didn't apply to us, very easy to tailor out and say this question's not applicable to our business. And the same is true if you're AS 9120 or 9110. It's not expected that this tool, or intended that this tool, is to be used to qualify suppliers or weed out suppliers. But you know, if a customer learns that you've used this tool and they find a deficiency in a specific area, you know, they may want to find out, you know, what action plans you might have in place. But it's really not intended to be used by your customers. It's really intended to be an internal tool. Flexibility. I really like the flexibility in this tool. Us being ISO certified, I find that in using this tool, we will go back and do more. We found opportunities. I've run a certification body. I've been a third-party auditor for 10 years. All of our staff have worked for certification bodies. We have a really robust quality management system. And of the 17 years we've been certified, I want to say between internal and external audits, we might have had 5 findings over the 17 years, internal and external. It's not very many. So, you know, I think we have a pretty robust quality system. This tool has shown me there's a lot of improvement opportunities we can have, and you'll see some of that in the results as I show you. You don't have to do the entire quality system. Let's say you have a weakness in, or a suspected weakness in your supply chain or procurement area. You can just focus on clause 8.4 and do the assessment tool for just that portion. Fine. Find out where there may be opportunities to help the business. And so you can parse it out and subsection out different ways, slice and dice however you like, and I'll show you how we did that for ourselves. And it can also be a tool, we're going to take credit for it as a partial internal audit for us, because it is an assessment against ISO 9001, and it was a self-assessment that was done, and it's documented, and we're going to take credit for it as a partial audit of our quality system, because we have some opportunities identified out of it. So the intended use, there's a lot of ways that this tool can be used. We chose to go through the entire quality management system. It takes a lot of time. We finished all but one module, and we chose strategically to pause and focus on that one module later, and I'll talk about that. I can see where you might start where there might be some low-hanging fruit. You know, you might feel you're robust in an area or weak in an area, and you want to target that area, and that's perfectly fine. For those companies that are certified and want to use the standards as a way to improve and get better, this is a tool to help you get even better, and you'll see some examples of how that applied to us. For those companies that are not certified, this is also a helpful tool because it goes through the entire standard clause by clause, and if you're a mature, there's 5 levels of maturity, 1 through 5, and if you're a maturity level 1, you most likely will not pass that clause or that portion of the audit. If you're a maturity level 2 or 3, you will probably be able to get certified and might have some findings. And definitely some opportunities for improvement through your third-party audits. If you're maturity level 4 or 5, you're definitely certified or certifiable and have a much more robust maturity level of that clause or section of the standard. So this is a neat, flexible use of the tool that I really liked. And of course, for us being certified already, we were using this as a way to improve our existing quality system and drive some improvement opportunities. It also helps us where we might find gaps or opportunities on the maturity level. It helps us set some targets, some action plans, which is really nice. All right, so I'm going to go through the AIMM model. Any questions about the purpose so far? I want to get into some of the details about the model, how it's built, the expected outcomes, the different maturity levels, the criteria that's established, and how we go through the different modules and analyze and set objectives for our improvement and work on those plans. So the framework of the AIMM model has 3 elements to look at the maturity level. And what we see in the right, in the blue, the different shades of blue and the white are what the AIMM tool looks like. And the first piece is expected outcomes. And so in this case, I picked 9.2 clause internal audits. In this case, this is question number 1 out of 10. And the expected outcomes are looking at what it is. It's a positive statement that doesn't contain a shall or should. It's a positive statement about the requirements in the standard and what it's expecting to see as a positive statement. And then it looks at the different levels of maturity against that expected outcome and gives you a roadmap to assess your level of maturity. As we go through all the questions of this model, we can cover 100% of ISO 9001 or AS 9100. In this case, again, at 9.2 clause, there's 10 questions to cover internal audits. They've broken it down into those subsets of expected outcomes for an effective internal audit process based on what's in the standard. And so then we go through the maturity levels. There's up to 5 maturity levels. The first level is reactive. It's a firefight mode. We don't have any planning. It's not repeatable. We just, when it's an alarm, we do something. Makes sense that if you're level 1, you wouldn't pass that portion of an ISO or AS audit. So level 2, we start to get some consistency, start to put in some controls, but it's not necessarily at a company level or a systemic level. It might be only by a department level where we start to get that consistency or that control, or by project. And then level 3 is when we start to see that systemic fix, or I say systemic fix, that systemic approach and culture where your practice is done company-wide, not necessarily by department or by project. All right. And then level 4 is where we start to have targets, objectives, goals. We're analyzing the data and can start to predict trends where things are going from a maturity level standpoint. And then level 5 gets into benchmarking and best practices against those requirements. Make sense? All right, so the 5 maturity levels, just other key words that we see in the expected outcomes. With the level 1, where it's very reactive, ad hoc, not repeatable. Level 2 and level 3, we start to see some consistency and harmonization. It might be by department level or by company level that would determine what's a level 2 or level 3. Level 4, you see KPIs, goals, trends, proactive. And then level 5, those keywords, those are the kinds of the words that'll be used, that they used in creating statements for the expected outcomes for the different maturity levels to help you grade yourself. So the assessment criteria, we get into below each of those levels, we see the explanation of what is the criteria, and here we have for the internal audits, sporadic, they're reactive. Something happened and now we're going to go do an internal audit. We don't have a plan, we don't do it all the time, there's no schedule. That's a level 1. In this case, level 2, we do have a schedule. It is at planned intervals. It might be at a product level, it may be at a project level, it may not be at the whole company quality system. Level 3, we start to see the schedule, we see consistency across the company, audits done for all of the processes, there's controls in place to make sure that audits are done on time, and accordance to the schedule, so on and so forth. And so we grade ourselves then against that criteria. So this is an online tool. You go to the IAQG website, the International Aerospace Quality Group website, and you can see that AIMM tab at the top. There's also, I'd be remiss if I don't talk about the Supply Chain Management Handbook, a lot of free material there to help with all kinds of topics. All the writers and participants in the AS 9100 standards realize that there's a lot more behind what's written in the standard, being a baseline quality system. And so they've written lots of documents and keep them up to date to talk about all kinds of topics. All right, so AIMM. When you log into AIMM, you set up an account. So that's the only thing I don't like about AIMM is that you don't download it and then just put it on your computer and populate it. The International Aerospace Quality Group, really wants to know who's in the aerospace world using this tool, who's not in the aerospace world using this tool. They want to benchmark and find out, how to tweak this tool, but also to benchmark and find out, what are potentially, better practices and expectations. They don't sell your information. I've been part of the Supply Chain Management Handbook many, many years. I've never gotten an email from the IAQG, with marketing materials that I haven't, signed up for. I'm on committees, but I don't get marketing materials, and I haven't gotten anything from AIMM, having started using that.
They may not share it, but they use it.
So their plan is to use it, and they actually even ask you if you find improvement ideas or ways to rephrase. They want that feedback because it's a new tool, and they're really excited about certified and non-certified companies using this tool to improve the entire industry.
So do they use that tool though to the point where a supplier goes in and says, I know I'm struggling in planning, and they give their stuff some pretty poor marks there that show they need some significant improvement. To drive that, they don't use that to target any.
No, there's no penalty, there's no harm, no foul. This is a self-improvement tool. It doesn't go into OASIS. It's not any public information. It's not public information. It's not used like the OASIS users, where the primes can actually go in and see their suppliers' performance of their third-party audits or put them on watch list. This is strictly an internal, intended private use tool for improvement. Your customers would never see any results. This is not intended to be shared at all. So you start to see the modules here in the dark blue in the lower left, starting to break it out by clause, major clauses and subclauses. And in our case, when I attended the webinar, the free webinar, and then I jumped in and started to do this, and I thought, we're a mature company. We should be maturity level 4, with our sophistication and certification bodies and certifications and third-party audits, and we should be maturity level 4. And so I populated, maturity level 4 in all of these that I said were applied, and where I said it doesn't apply, NA, you see it stays dark blue. And that means it's not going to ask me any of those questions. So we're a service company. We have no gauge calibration. We have no measurement gauges. So we don't have that's one of our exclusions for ISO 9001. And then we're not a manufacturer, and we're not AS 9100, so the operational risk piece in clause 8.1.1 doesn't apply to us. Same thing for configuration management, product safety, prevention of counterfeit parts. You know, those don't affect us. So I can put NA, and it doesn't ask you those questions when you go through. That's part of the planning piece of this module. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. This was the only piece that I didn't find super intuitive until after I started populating the tool, but not a big deal.
So based on your previous slide, then if you're already certified in 9100, the expectation would be that you'd be at level 2.
Thank you. At a minimum level 2.
Yeah, so if you're
2 or 3.
If you assess yourself and you're above that, it's a win.
Right, right. So, you know, I thought about that when I was picking what I thought our maturity level should be. And I thought, well, we're better than 3. So I put 4 as the target. I could have put 3 or 2. To your point, we could be certified being a level 2, maturity level 2 or 3, obvious areas for opportunity for improvement.
Right, and you want to get those areas that you have on biggest opportunity and focus on, right? So
there are areas where you may know, we got a weakness in, you know, product safety. We know we're weak in this area. So just go and populate this portion of the tool and see, you know, based on however many questions there are in that module, where the weaknesses are. And it's a great tool to identify. I'll share some of our examples in a few slides about, you know, where it's helped us and opened my eyes and my team's eyes on a couple of things. That was pretty cool.
You'd have to be an average of 3, right?
No, not necessarily. So if you think about compliance to the standard, and each clause has some shalls. You shall do this, you shall do that. And so, you know, let's use clause 4 as an example. Clause 4.1, I am, let's say, a maturity level 2 or 3. I couldn't, theoretically, based on how you assess yourself, I could get certified. There's no written requirement for context of the organization, so I might muddle my way through an audit and say enough buzzwords and show the auditor enough stuff to say, okay, I don't love it. You don't have a business plan. You don't have a strategic plan. You don't have to have one. You've not done a SWOT. Well, where do you plan to be in 5 years? Talk to me about that. That might be a maturity level 2, and that can pass AS or ISO.
You would pass a 2 for any one of them, but average all of them combined.
So
you have to be at least a 3 to pass your audit.
No. So you can, you know, let's say your third-party audit, your auditor, and it's a sampling, so your auditor stumbles across 4 or 5 problem areas that they write findings. You get your findings. You after the audit, you close out those findings, and then you get certified. And then they come back again next year and look at those findings and to say, are they effectively closed out? And we're going to go audit new stuff now. And are there new breakdowns in the quality system?
We'll find more new ones.
Yeah. And that's how that process works. And that's that continual improvement process. How many of you are certified now? How many of you are working towards certification, possibly? Cool, good. I like this tool a lot, especially if you're going to work to try to become certified. It really helps to open your eyes, and that discussion about maturity level 2 or level 3, you may go into a certification audit and say, you know, I know I'm weak here, but I've got bigger fish to fry over in clause 8.5 for production operations, and I'm going to go tackle those big pieces, and I'll take my lumps with the certification body if they find those findings.
I think if you start with a 2, you're at least just saying, here's my low level, right there is where I want to be. You know, I don't want to go below that.
Yeah, we can't pick our customers, and we have some that just want to hang the certificate on the wall, and the executive management or the owner of the company is really not participating. We have some conversations with them about how that needs to change, but there's they want to delegate everything to the quality manager, and you just make it happen, do it, hang the certificate on the wall, and get me let's go move on to something else. That happens, and so. This helps. This can also help in those situations with the management team to give some better awareness about, well, what does the standard really mean in some layman's terms, and what the expectations may be, and where the maturity levels. It's not just like a pass-fail. There's some areas that we may need to be more robust. In some areas, some modules, some clauses, we might want to choose strategically to be a 5. One company of ours, makes the detonation systems on missiles. They can't have any failures. If they make failures, wrong people die. So to them, 0 defects means 0 defects. And if they don't hit their internal production targets, they're not hitting their KPIs, and they're getting findings with their certification body. So be it. They won't set anything less than that. Now, after I and our team went through the modules, there's one that we put on pause. We're ISO 9001 certified, and we include design as a service company. We include design, and every handful of years when the standards change, we create new training materials, and we put that through our design process. And it's a pretty basic design process. We have design inputs, the standards change, design outputs, we need to create training materials, and we have to go through, beta testing, and do some verification and validation, and then release, and it's pretty basic, very basic. After going through some of the modules, it's like, we are not a maturity level 4 on design. As a service company, we could have said we don't do design, but we chose to put it in and hold ourselves to that requirement. And that was one where we said, after we went through this, the team said, we shouldn't be a maturity level 4. This is one where we should be a maturity level 3. Good. So you don't have to be one size across it. By clause, you can be different maturity levels. And that makes sense. There's some risk factors based on what we do as a business. Parts distributors, counterfeit parts, traceability pieces should be a higher risk. We should have a higher maturity. We shouldn't squeak by at a 2 maturity level or a 3 maturity level. Strategically, risk-wise, liability-wise. So this is another snapshot here of what the AIMM tool looks like. Starting from the beginning, you start to see, okay, clause 4.1, there's expected outcomes, and then these remarks are comments that our team put in for the assessment, and the in this case, section 4, I don't know how many questions there were in total, but you can see the expected outcomes and what that starts to look like. And then when you click on the very first one, you get into more detail, more depth, where it gets into the very specifics for level 1, level 2, level 3, and there's no level 5 on this one. It goes 1 through 4, which is some of them don't have 5 levels of maturity. But they want you to go left to right. They want you to say, okay, what percent maturity am I at level 1? We were 100% maturity at level 1. For level 2, we were 100% maturity at level 2. At level 3, we were 100% maturity at level 3. Level 4, we do a lot of this stuff. We were 100% maturity at level 4. So that's how we graded ourselves. And then we had a comment here, and it shows up here in the remarks. This is an area of strength for our company. We have all kinds of strategic records and documentation and ongoing activity and adjustments to our context and impacts to our stakeholders and interested parties. For us, that's a cakewalk. So you can't just jump and populate 100% here. You have to go left to right and populate along the way. We have found where, based on what's described, that might have been a 75% or 80%, based on something that was in here. We didn't do that. And we did some of this, but we didn't do all of it. And so we graded ourselves something less than 100%. But over here, based on what was defined, we did put 100%. The tool lets you do that. But when it rolls everything up, it says, gee, you weren't 100% here, so your maturity level is actually a 3. Even though you had 100% here, but you had 75 or 80% there, it puts you at a maturity level 3. It has that smartness in it to say, we're gonna give you a little demerit, keep you at that lower level of maturity. At every section, at every maturity level, there's an opportunity to add comments and remarks, either individually at this subset level or as a whole level across the whole expected outcome. And where we might find some opportunities or some gaps, we might want to tag and document a very specific action item that we want to track. And then in this section, clause 4, there are 18 questions. This is one of 18 questions. And so of the 18 questions, we also have the ability to say, oh, this question doesn't apply to us. When we get into the manufacturing, in section 8.5, we don't produce products, so there's some requirements in there that deal with production companies. We just put NA, very easy, simple tool to use. It took that question out, took that, we didn't have to score it to move on. Very nice, very easy. So the 26 modules aren't necessarily clause by clause. We see in the beginning here, clause 4, 5, 6, it is clause by clause, but there are some clauses that are bigger, they need to be broken down, or topic-wise need to be broken out. So here 7.1 has everything focusing on resources with exception of the gauges on 7.15. So 7.15 with gauges has its own module. And so we get to tailor the scope of what modules we want to use and look at and grade ourselves if we're not going to do the whole thing. And in the production clauses, we see that's broken out into 3 sections based on what's because it's too big of an area, so they broke it out into 3 sections. Same thing for supply chain in clause 8.4. So it's not necessarily a one-to-one tie to the clauses of the standards, because there's same topics like change control covered in multiple sections of the standard. Counterfeit parts might be covered in a couple sections of the standard. So they group those together and pull those threads together for this module to assess how you're doing. But when you fill out this tool across the board, you cover 100% of the ISO 9001 and you cover 100% of the AS 9100 requirements. Unless you say, this one doesn't apply to me, but it covers every clause. So you get a nice little radar chart, and the target level is that dark blue line that we had 20 of the 26 modules apply to us, and I showed we had a target of 4 for everything except for design, which we said was a 3, maturity level 3, and then you just start to see how we started to perform with the light blue on how we performed, and I'll show you our final chart here shortly. So that's how that works, and then ultimately when you go to use this tool, you need to set your objectives. What is it you want to do with this tool? Do I just want to look at a little piece? Do I want to just look at our whole quality system and the maturity level of our entire quality system? Do we just are looking for improvement opportunities? Do we have some areas from internal audits or external audits that have had findings in the past that we want to scrutinize a little bit deeper? this is a great tool to do pieces or in whole. And we get to slice and dice however we like. And I love that about this tool. It's really easy to use in that way. So here are some key learnings that we had out of this tool. We chose to do our full quality management system versus pieces. And it was pretty easy in looking at how the AIMM in planning. Now I did waste some time. I'll go back and look at on the AIMM main page. There's a planning, and then it gets into the model. And there was the very first tab was kind of a waste of time. It just showed you the questions clause by clause, and then I started to fill it out. And thank goodness I did the solo portions before I did it with our team, because we filled it out and then it didn't carry it over to the scoring portion. You had to jump to another tab to actually start your scoring. And it's like, well, I didn't even need to go through this pre-stuff. I could have just gone to the scoring right away. And so when we went with our team to fill out portions, we went right to the scoring and didn't waste any time. Didn't have to transport data from the planning into the actual assessment. But it's easy to tailor out. We talked about the targeted maturity levels and how it's okay to be a 2 or 3, but depending on what we do as a business and culture of the company and management support, there's levels of maturity that might be expected, or department managers some departments may have higher maturities than other departments, sophistication-wise, and we can plan for that and say, this department is weaker, so let's make our target a maturity level 3. The biggest key learning, it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of questions. We didn't track how much time it took our team and how many man hours it took, but it took us a long time to get through, and the instructions tell you to plan 4 hours per module. Some modules have more questions, some modules have less questions, but they said on average 4 hours per module. And it didn't take us 4 hours per module, but it took a lot of time. It took hours. And so part of the planning is, okay, if we're going to do a module on purchasing section, you want to get the right purchasing people involved, plan, we're going to do this over 2 2-hour meetings. And if it happens in 2 hours, we don't need this next meeting for the following week. We can get it done in 2 hours, but if we need 4 hours, we got 4 hours to get it done. We had some good, hearty discussions and honest assessments, which was good for our team. But the time was the biggest surprise to me, how much time it took. So analyzing the results and determining where there's opportunities and where there might be risks, I thought we were better. I thought we were maturity level 4. Easy across the board. And taking out we're ISO, taking out the AS unique extra requirements stuff, I was surprised that our maturity level was more at a 3 level versus higher. As the owner of the company, as a sophisticated quality management system, this tool does a really great job in exposing opportunities. And that says a lot about this tool and the work that's been done, because I thought, this tool, we'll go through it, we're not going to find anything. We found a few things that we needed to work on, and that was pretty slick. I make a note, so this is a great tool for consultants that they can use with clients that are working to get certified, or improvement opportunities in an area with an existing client that's certified. But definitely companies that are trying to achieve certification, this is a great tool to use to help you improve in every area. And again, some areas you might strategically want to say, we're going to take our chances with audit findings and focus on this, meatier areas or more problematic areas. That's fine. You don't go into your third-party audits expecting to come through with no findings on an initial certification, so that's fine. the best key learning for me was this was a valuable tool for our company. We came out with some good action items that they're making us better. This chart shows our end result, and you can see the purple dark blue line where we were targeting maturity level 4. The light blue radar portion of the chart shows where, geez, only 5 out of the 20 modules, only 25% were we level 4 or level 5. When I was expecting, as the owner of the company, I was expecting a lot more of the modules to be at level 4 or level 5. Wow. You can see in clause 8.3, we haven't scored it yet. I talked about, the maturity level of our design process. We're going to do it. We just haven't done it yet, and we haven't scheduled the time to target that one yet. But we did all the other clauses of the standard, and we came out with, basically 3/4 of the modules that affect our business at maturity level 3. We will be using this tool again. And, we've identified some action items. Like one of the action items is on the ISO 9001 side, we have some key performance indicators. And we have some things that we monitor and measure that are not necessarily KPIs for our process, our service process that we deliver. Let me talk about on-time delivery. So, for example, we perform internal audits for companies. We monitor through computer software and tracking and workflow automation. We track and we set an internal target of delivering our internal audit reports within 7 days. We do have some pretty sophisticated, complex audits where we allow 10 days. But our internal expectation and communication is 7 days. And then prior to our internal audits with our clients, we want our auditors to submit the audit schedule 4 weeks in advance. And we track all that. We know who our problem employees are, who we have to follow up with, and we have workflow automation where they get email alerts. The management team in-house gets notifications and tracking to say, hey, Sally hasn't sent the audit report that was done last week. It's been 7 days. We haven't gotten it. It's not in our database yet. Hasn't been submitted. So they get an automatic alert. The next day, the office is calling up and saying, hey, where is this? And so we don't set that as a KPI where we have that as a goal, because we use that as a service level of performance expectation that exceeds our customer's expectation. So we don't necessarily have that as a KPI, but it's a monitor. And we used to get I used to get periodic reports to see where we were. And when we're going through this assessment, it's like, you know what, I haven't seen that report. It's been since COVID, I haven't seen that report. What's our status? Why haven't I seen that report? I see all the other KPIs that were for our processes that we're performing against, but that one was one that, geez, I haven't seen that. Well, we know who our problem players are, and we're following up with them, and we have to just crack the whip, and that's just our office staff expectation. Well, I want to see the data. Show it to me. That was an action item out here. Do we need to resurrect that with the internal management team, or is the department okay to manage that? We don't know, so we're analyzing that and discussing that in our management meetings to say, is this something we want to resurrect and relook at? I think that's valuable to our business, and I think that was a helpful insight. And there's some other areas just like that we have some action items out of to improve our quality system. So very flexible. I like it. We're going to work, we're talking about how we can, we're going to do Clause 8.3, but we're also going to talk about how we can feed our internal auditors to say, here are some areas of weakness that we've seen as the management team. We want you in your internal audit to dig deeper. That's another one of our action items out of here, because we want you to dig. We want you to be tougher, because we see some gaps where we could be better. So just some neat things from our perspective in doing this. Very easy, relatively, generally speaking, is very self-intuitive. I talked about not liking the 100% online, but that's really it for my presentation. I love the tool. We are going to talk about it more with our clients as a valuable tool for them to do some self-assessments or target areas. And the website, this material all came from the AIMM and from the IAQG, but this support material here, when you go to the website, IAQG and the AIMM module, the tab, you can see there's an introductory presentation, there's a user's guide, best practices, there's recorded webinars that you can look at, and some e-learning stuff, and there's other materials there to help you.
What would you think about this, using this tool as an input for information to the internal audit team?
So I like the idea of the internal audit team using this because it really helps break down the requirements clause by clause to sophistication levels, maturity levels, and then the auditors get a different perspective of, is it there or not? For a compliance audit, is it there? Do I comply or do I not comply? Is it a pass or is it a fail? To shades of gray. I see this, but we could do that as a business, as a culture, as a, from a company perspective, a department perspective, the management perspective. Is this something that we should be doing? And I see it as a great internal auditor tool to help
introduce that level of maturity along with the audit to not only assess what's going on in the process, but to give it a level of maturity.
In addition to that, when you have newer auditors or immature auditors, or a manager who doesn't understand the requirements of the standard, this is a great tool to break out to show there's a spectrum here. Where do you want to be on this spectrum? And here's explanations of what we could do, can do, should do, based on how sophisticated we want to be. And that's pretty powerful. And it's a great way to get buy-in also with some process owners where, some that just need to meet the minimum, or some that really need to do more, want to do more. It's a helpful tool to bring a greater awareness to what the standard is really looking for, and it gives you examples of ways to comply in better ways or more sophisticated ways, which is wonderful. Thanks for your time.